Hi, welcome back. So we have talked about collecting data, storing data, processing data, and now it's time to start describing data, right? So describing data again has two aspects. The first is visualizing the data and the other is summarizing data. So let's talk about each of them, right? So let's start with visualizing data. So again, imagine you are an e-commerce company, you're a marketplace where multiple people come and upload their goods, and say a lot of people have companies selling shirts have come to your marketplace, and you have a large collection of shirts in your e-catalog, right? And now you want to do some quick visualizations of what does this data look like, right? So you have shirts of different colors. Now it might be interesting to quickly draw a plot which has these different shirts or colors and then the number of shirts of each color that you have, and then I get a very quick sense without actually getting into numbers that how many shirts, which are the most dominant color in your e-catalog and so on, right? So this is very interesting to quickly visualize, and where you make use of plots for doing this. There are different types of plots that we're going to cover. So describing data is a very important part of this course. So we'll be talking about bar graphs, stacked bar graphs, group bar graphs and so on. So here's, for example, a grouped bar graph where you are again, say, an online company or even say a physical store dealing in electronics items, and you're selling these different items in your shop, and you want to know which of them in the past 2 years was selling more. Is the trend different this year than what it was last year and so on. Now again, drawing a grouped bar chart like this where you have mobile data, TV data and fridge data and the number of sales or the sales amount, total sales amount for each of these items or each of these categories in your shop in the past 2 years, right? So you can quickly visualize this data. And just imagine, otherwise the only option is this, all of this would have been stored in a relational database as one row, and you have some entries, and then you have to just look at the entire table, and you'll not be able to make much sense of what is happening in the data, right? But a quick summary in the form of a visualization helps you to describe the data very effectively and draw some clear insights from it, right? So here you can see that the sales of mobile have, for example, dropped this year or the 2019, and then the sales of TV has increased, the sales of fridge has increased, and so on. Of course, this is fictional data, but I'm just saying you could draw these conclusions very quickly and compare this to the other choice that you have, is to just look at everything in a relational database, look at the column sales for these different categories and try to figure out what is happening there, right? And these were all one set of plots, but you could also want to do plots where you want to find relations between two different variables, right? So you're interested in knowing that I spend a lot of money on marketing, maybe on digital marketing or newspapers or TV or radio, and how does it relate to my sales, right? So is it that when I spend more money on marketing, do my sales increase, or is it the case that they increase up to a point, but then after that point any more marketing does not help because I've already reached out to the audience that I should have reached out to, right? So this is something that you might be interested in plotting. So you could take two columns from your database and draw what is known as a scatter plot and try to understand the relations between these variables, right? So this is roughly what you do in visualizing data. There are many more other types of plots that we'll talk about in this course, and we'll also also give you knowledge about the Python libraries that are required to draw these plots, right? Okay. Then again, coming to summarizing data. So again, think of you as a shop and you are selling, say, TVs, and you have these monthly sales records. You have noted down the number of TVs that you sold on every day, and now you are interested in certain types of questions which summarize your data. So here's one question, right? What is the typical number of TVs that I sell daily, right? And what does this typical value mean? Typically you are referring to the mean, what is the average number of TVs that I sell every day, or you are referring to the median, which is what is the mid, if I sort all these numbers, then what is the number which lies at the middle, or you're looking at the mode, which is the most frequent number appearing in my data and so on, right? So this gives you some idea of what is typically happening in my store, right? But you would also, and this information is useful, right? Suppose you want to get more goods into your godown, you need to know that if I have only 3 remaining, should I start panicking, or if I have 20 remaining, I think I should be okay because it will last for another 4 days because my average sale is 5 per day, so it should be fine and so on, right? So these numbers are very important from that point of view. But you are also interested in knowing what is the typical variation. So maybe it happened, if you have, and this especially matters if you are doing this across months instead of within a month, right? So you want to know what is the average monthly sale. Now it would happen that suppose there's a World Cup or some sporting event coming in a particular month in say May, then the TV sales typically rise in that month, and they might be significantly higher, maybe 3 times, 4 times than what they are in the other months. And now if you compute the average, your average will start looking very high, and you might think that in a month I need to store at least 100 TVs in my godown because that's what the requirement is. But in reality what would have happened is that this number 100 is very high because there was one month in which you sold 600 or 700 or even 1000 TVs, right? So what you also need to know is what the typical variation in your data, right? Is it that all values are very close to the average, or there's a big spread here? There are some months in which I sell only 20 TVs and there are some months in which I sell 1000 TVs, or it is that mostly uniformly in all months I sell around 200 to 250 TVs or something of that sort, right? So this kind of summary comes from these two statistics known as standard deviation and variance, right? So summary statistics, all of these are collectively referred to as summary statistics, is something that we'll do in detail in the course and tell you when to use mean, when to use median, and have different, talk about different distributions and what their mean and standard deviation and variance and so on is, right? So that's something that we'll do in detail in this course, right? So these are the two parts, visualizing data and summarizing data. And this deals with an aspect of statistics which is called descriptive statistics. Later on I'll talk about another aspect of statistics which is called inferential statistics, but visualizing and summarizing deals with descriptive statistics. And as you see, it's an iterative process, right? For example, I might note down the relation between sales and marketing expense, and I might not realize that there is any relation here. And then I might want to check what is the relation between sales and say the number of stores, or sales and the number of employees in my store, and so on, right? So I try to do some exploration, and then I realize that okay, this is not making sense, maybe I should look at other columns. I'm trying to find the relation between, or the trend of mobile TV and fridge, it looks very similar, so maybe I should also put in laptops and say tablets and other things into the foray, so that I get to know whether there's any other trend which is emerging, right? So this is a very iterative process, and it's also called as exploratory data analysis. This is one term that you'll hear very often in the context of data science. So this is what you mean by exploratory data analysis. You look at the columns in your data, you try to draw some plots, compute some summary statistics, and see if there are any trends, and then based on that iterate again and try to find out which are the important columns in your data, right? So that's one of the things that you do in exploratory data analysis. So all of this comes under describing data, and in descriptive statistics is what you need to know for this, right? So quickly looking at the skills, you need statistics. You can also need to have a knowledge of Excel so that you can quickly draw these plots, or you could use Python if you're more of a programming person. If you just want to load data and then draw plots using Python, that would be good. Similarly, R and Tableau. Tableau of course allows you for much more detailed visualizations than what I showed in the slides, right? So these are some of the things. Of this, we will focus on statistics and Python in this course because these are the most predominantly used things for describing and summarizing data. Of course, you could think of Excel, R and Tableau as the, probably not Tableau, but Excel and R as the alternative tools instead of Python, which you can use for drawing plots or even for computing mean, mode, median, etc. But we'll just stick to Python in this course because that's the most popular thing out there, right? So that's all about describing data. I'll end this video here, and I'll come back and start talking about the most important aspect, which is modeling data. Thank you.